Ready to introduce Paul Richmond. Paul has brought some of his human error publishing poets, and there's a guest poet from Writing the Land in his block. So I'll just leave it to Paul. Thanks.
Okay, welcome everyone, and welcome to this hour of this incredible festival that I'm very happy to be a part of and to be hosting these poets. Thanks to Lis for Nature Culture and all the work that she does, like this festival and many other projects to honor the land. And Liz for your behind the scenes work that keeps this flowing and makes it look like it's flawless, though I'm clicking links all over the place trying to figure out where I am exactly. So here I am, though, which is really good. We're going to jump right into it. Each poet will introduce themselves and present some of their poems in their slot. I'll give a minute warning if needed so we can make sure we fit everybody in. Please check out Nature Culture's website so that you don't miss future projects and that are happening, and there are many, and also past books that have been published and stuff. So let me introduce our first poet, who I'm glad is guesting with us, is Rodger Martin.
Thank you, Paul. I've taken a leaf from John Francis yesterday and spent this weekend listening, and it's been really worthwhile. Thank you all for doing this. I've got a chime clock in the background, but I'm going to do 4 poems. This first one is titled Along the Monadnock Watch. Moonglow cast deep to the dark spine and flank of this ancient whale of rock. And here, beached by the edge of a marsh stream like a salt, like an almost Roman outpost, stands a well guarding hemlock and brush, while mist unveils its tapestry. Soon a giant form thrashes clear of water, a moose, rack erect, plods toward the well and pauses. Steam rises from his back. He slowly wheels, wattle winging like a bell, and sniffs toward the granite peak that once sheltered wolf, until these nearsighted, almost Latin tillers ringed the stone with flame and burned the green to ash. The moose listens as those night legends sing, then ignores the granite blocks and returns to his slosh toward great lodges of pine. Later, as the moon guards its lower track, the moose is nailed on Highway 12, 4 limbs shattered by the chrome of another dreamer. An officer kneels by his side, strokes the dark fur. The moose breathes deep, each slow release a soft cloud masked in the flesh and blue, red and blue of low crackle of voice, square box of rescue truck. But over there on the mountain, framed under stars, a gray wolf floats up the shoe-worn rock and turns to stare down at the tiny strobes gathered along the pencil line it cannot cross. It sifts its head, then crouches low and points its snout to heaven. The howl descends to the ears of the valley. The moose awakens. His clean, dark eyes meet the officers. Natives awaken and listen to owl echo wolf echo loon. The bull imagines his antlers rising from a cold lake, while lilies cascade from his rack, and he bellows. The officer points his pistol and brings the hammer down. This next poem is from the Down East Salmon Federation for Writing the Land. Columbia Falls. Like an ancient castle lost on a lock, there the pleasant meets the tide. A defunct fish ladder and a great dump of granite blocks thwarts waves beside an eroding, degenerative power station. And for boys, now men, balance among the remnants remains a dangerous ration. From the bridge above, a safer watch for smelt beckons as waters gush on the tidal flats, increasingly hidden beneath the cold rush of Greenland melt. Will tomorrows render yesterdays ever again? Better to push upstream to a quiet tributary like the grilse, even if they'll not return. Find a rise and cast about like an angel stripped of wings, grounded to the autumn floor. How does one stand, vested to experience, where the flitting of an eyelash is an epoch, where the micron of a micron measures the present? Faced with such lineage, an albatross chained around the neck, how can one not cave into himself like a slow collapse of folding chair, back down to a barely remembered dawn and the even more unknowable black hole that is the future? Does it hold a heartbeat? The scourge of our species is, despite self-laceration, we cannot help but rise again into the shuttered sunshine, lean heavy on our walking sticks, and trudge through the yellow staghorn, the upright forest, between the glistening Caesar's amanita, until we reach the bank of that tributary. Look down, where clean, yellow-filtered clovings along the bottom of this silently moving brook give solace to the grieving. This is also a Down East poem, The Night Seals of Lubeck. At witching hour, summer rain patters on the wharf. Fog drifts in and out to tide just before change. The seals glide to the landing, ease themselves from the water. Respectful of whiskers, they nuzzle with their brothers, the sleeping dogs of Lubeck, reminding them of their kinship. Then, through the open windows of the town, the seals silently enter the bedrooms of sleepers. The dogs of Lubeck curl contentedly on the floor, while the seals whisper in the ears of dreamers who've mastered the seas at midnight and charted the oceans of the past. Then, silky as they had arrived, the seals leave the sleepers for dawn, gather again at the edge of the harbor, nuzzle again with their brothers, and depart. When the children wake, they speak of graceful dives through sun-gleamed kelp. Their elders wake to puzzlement at a thin film of water on the tiles that lead to open windows. And my last poem.
Yep, you got a minute left there, Rodger.
Watering the Horse. 27 below, starkness before dawn, I scrunch through snow toward an impassive shape sacred in her night-long confessional. A fine layer of unmelted powder quilts the long hairs that insulate her back. I remove a glove and sew my fingers beneath the fur, her skin comforting as toast. Were I better equipped, perhaps bearing grain, she might condescend to snort, but I check only water. She watches. Should I stumble, I would quickly stiffen, like these rails which keep my world at length, words useless against the cold as wet flannel. Here she is composer, writing on the vapor of her breath. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Rodger. Really appreciate that. Next up is Candace.
Hi, I want to thank Lis and Liz and Paul and everyone in the creation of this festival. It's been great, and I'm honored to be a part of it. First poem is called To Be Heard. The strangle tangle to get silence to speak, the struggle and mangle, tickle and bark, the flirt and hope to get words to stick to an interpreter's ear, a reader of signs and symbols that meld but disappear into ether. The caves they came, echolocating, bouncing, they boomerang back beyond human range to fan the ears of whispering bats with that wanting and not to be heard. The next poem is after John Francis. It was wonderful to hear him yesterday, and it really, he was talking about the language and joy of water and brooks and streams. And I had this poem, I feel the same way. It's called Same Old River New Again. It's crystal clear. Hillside brooks are having meltdowns. A spring thaw loosening their tongues, their ragged coverlets coming undone. They toss and turn in their beds with an otter's joy, spilling their banks, leapfrogging river stones. They speak in native licks and laps, in xylophone tones, reaching a crescendo, a buildup at the long river's door. Delivering a brilliant recital, a traditionally sung river song, the budding birch and I give a standing ovation. A hand-me-down verse, the river's laughter splish splashes in its mother's tongue. Break of morning. That early tender blush, the cloudy pink inside seashells, when suddenly sun, a yolk-colored bulb vaults the breakfast bowl of a hilltop town, closely followed by the rise of an invisible band leader's baton and the upstart of bird song, shaking the dog's collar trinkets, bringing us back on a short leash. Breakthrough bleeding, sun startles, a hillock of crocus. The next poem, I want to thank Lis and Writing the Land Workshop Poets and my own Windy Hill Poets for an ongoing change in this poem that I'm hoping will appear in Migrations. Endangered, numbered days. He told me about New Zealand, flightless birds living on island sanctuaries, owl face, soft feather, rotund kakapo, ground dwellers disappearing fewer than 200, and about the brilliance of orange-billed waders, oyster catchers with neon pink feet chasing in and out, back and forth in what seemed like a pulse of endless waves. He told me he found himself in the bush, in the company of fantails, unknowingly feeding them, turning up insects with every step of his solo trek. And that he slept under a bright canopy, where tumbled stone in the old ocean's song washed clean and filled heart, that jagged crag I opened. He said on his best days, in buoyant dreams, I was there with him, conjured in a birth he made, carried in a space he built, between wings and not having wings. Cinematic field song, where two straddle upright the mechanics of hold tight, on the choke and throb of a motorcycle's rattle-trap getaway into sundown, leaving fence-sitting felines whipping their wired tails, and a blue tick's bugle to match the steady pulse of squatting crickets, a keening in the buzz cut of field corn, an orchestrated trill of violas, with katydid synchronizing, taking center stage in whatever's left of summer's dazzle, the last of the musical chirpers, performing closure to our stray dog days, using Sirius in that big old dog star, throwing sparks through pie pan pricks, winking in time to the warble like an old recording. Can you imagine through the big ear of a vintage gramophone, reaching stars beyond, bright stars bouncing about in that rickety sky? In the performance of a lifetime with let me start that over. In the performance of a lifetime with well-lit signs, Mother puts on her mask and first things first does a biblical cleansing, a 17-year locust dusting, needed or not, floods, tsunamis, volcanic eruptions, wind and fire, a worldwide pandemic. Oh, that was a big one. But Mother, always fair, gives and takes, sends a lovely quiet over the expanse, returns some of the endangered, coming out of the woodwork, the forests, out of the sea, new old species, whales, a baby panda born in captivity, no witnesses, but it happened, with Gaia reclaiming previously owned real estate. We stagger from lockdown, our neighborhood watch to see, to gawk at the brightest of constellations, tripping all over themselves, looking around with new eyes, ears to hear the silent blue, the round world becoming reacquainted. And Mother, of course, old hat, well, she's seen it, done it, never tiring, but we behold. We hold each other as if for the first time, as if never before. Stalking the rivers until they learn to fly again. Fish climb ladders.
Thanks so much, Candace.
Thank you.
And next up is Gary.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Gary Metras. I live in East Hampton, Massachusetts. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me, Paul. Liz, thanks for setting me up earlier. The first two poems are two different experiences of winter. This first one is called The Last Hour of the First Day of February. So winter at 11 o'clock at night. I'm standing flanked by two tall bushes I planted just to feel branches surround me, as if I too were rooted, watching small starlight revolve overhead, playing with darkness, the way today's record high toyed with winter wind. Most snow melted, I walked to the side yard, each step spongy, yielding weight a meager inch of turf, to frozen ground held solid, implacable, as if it knows snow is forecast. I'm wedged here, absorbing air between these leaf-bare rows of Sharons, taller than any man when I hear footfalls, not loud, not brash, almost delicate. Two deer step close enough to hug. I freeze, the smell of wild fur in my mouth, my beard tingling and sprouting. Their easy pace continues under stars suddenly brighter, the slim moon, almost a smile, an exhale of joy. I'm an avid cold water, rivers and stream kind of restoration kind of guy, and an avid fly fishing guy too. And I've written a couple of books just on fly fishing poems, and this one here is about one experience on a river fly fishing. A few feet away. For 3 weeks in February, the deer carcass, wedged within the tangle of downed trees, flood washed onto the gravel bar in the river, grew smaller. Tracks of animals in the snow, bobcat, coyote, fox. Someone said they saw a bald eagle tearing at the flesh. When I weighed beside those white ribs curving over emptiness and the ripped muscles red as berries on snow, I stood there to cast to the cut bank across the current where trout always hid. There was no smell of rot to foul the clean frozen air. February is like that. You wouldn't know. Death lay a few feet away. Well, this one here is titled Against Death, but it's a little bit more positive than the last one, I think. And it deals a little bit with the bird song, and we're getting close to spring, and we're going to have a lot of birds singing like crazy. But also deals with William Wordsworth and Samuel Taylor Coleridge. Against Death. For weeks, the birds chattered the treetops, winging above the meadow, and perched on roofs along the street. Each its own song, its own necessity, each an offering to the vaporous world. Wordsworth said, Coleridge talks as a bird sings. He could not help it. It is his nature. And all listened to his melodies, enraptured. He, too, added voice to the sonorous earth, an omnidirectional beat thumping urgency against time's pulse. Robin sings to robin, finch to finch. The beclouded poet sang to angels and devils equally, and each replied in kind by their natures with a wager of charged breath, breathing the hymns of articulated nature. Long may the spirits fly in the riot of birdsong when the earth tilts towards abundance and beyond. Long may the spirits incarnate the songs of birds as the sun resonates its light through air. Though the voiceless dead outnumber those who sing, still each bird has a song. As I said, I live in East Hampton, and anybody who's driven through this area knows that Mount Tom is a prominent geological feature, and I live right on the side of the mountain. And this poem's called Another Winter, and it deals with Mount Tom, but you could put any mountain in that first line. Old Tom, mountain beyond the backyard, sleeps like a titan. For you, this is just another winter. The snow numbs, the wind chafes, dream is your retreat. The valley you sprang from has been measured, marked, cut, and built on, as if there is nothing else for men to do. When the snow comes, where will those boundaries be? Your flank was hacked out like a tumor so we could ski in our health. An antenna is your crown, blinking the night-long journey we think will last eternity. The scrub pine bend under snow. You hardly flinch in your waiting, in a deep mystery of your stone. The land would be barren without your height, like a boy with no father or man without God, a monotony beyond us all. When the snow melts, sluicing down your wind-sculpted side, a few more trees will be cut, a foundation or two dug to gape with the emptiness hopes are built from. And then new neighbors who look at you in June deliciousness and wonder what to do with time while you attend all the winters to come. I'll end with this one here. The good life. All day the farmer spreads manure on the snow-clothed fields, as if he and the crows, as if he and the cows waited for just such a day as today to release and collect and release again the brown gold, as they call it round here. It steams up from the white ground, bends the air as it rises through the cold sky. Its heat melts the snow in gushes of love, then droplets that work down and down through layers and pockets and crevices of the frozen stoic soil that shifts and swells and shrinks to admit such bubbles of nutrients. Come summer, corn will grow to feed the herd of milkers next fall and winter, such foresight, such indifference to the noses of the city folk who've moved next door and used their paid-for acres as toboggan run where once alfalfa grew along the old white farmhouse they repainted to become the Victorian country home seen in a magazine, 3 shades of blue, hewing darker along the eaves. Come July, they will sit on a porch in the evenings with brie, Gouda, and stone ground crackers on a glass top table where the Chardonnay pauses. Deer come out the forest to feed on those sweet grasses. They watch the deer bend down, ears and white tails twitching. They drink. They think the deer stare at them every few minutes. Only the moon at moonrise reflecting on their crystal goblets could make this better. It is the second day of spring, and the forecast is 6 more inches of snow. The farmer works all day, darkening the white fields he hoped will be by morning white again.
Thanks a lot, Gary. Next up is Dina.
Hi, everybody. I want to echo the gratitude to Lis and Lis for creating this space and to all the supporters in the wings too. And I also want to honor Jupong Lin and Petra Kuppers, my fellow workshop presenters, for the way that our workshops kind of magically dovetailed and resonated without our having planned any of that ahead. And I want also to honor all the poets I've been hearing who have trusted that they'll be heard here. And listening to Candace sort of tickled memory for me of a really happy memory of sitting someplace with my eyes closed, listening to Candace read. It was so nice to be reminded of that and to also remember that since we do all of this sort of disembodied connecting on Zoom, the one way that we're still able to touch each other is through our sound waves and reaching our ears mutually. And so there is this other intimacy to Zoom through our voices that I think we forget is there. And I just wanted to remind you of before I dive into my first poem today, called Poetry Festival on Zoom. This is new work. Poetry Festival on Zoom. Voices carry across the distance, each heart a drumbeat from the other side of the screen, shifting rhythm into sync, weaving a vessel of ceremony, each poet reading into the silence, their word music an offering to an audience muted in sacred listening, together holding the light, pushing against the terrible dark, signaling the universe with our wild joy in being, our exquisite ache. We are invincible. We are vulnerable. We are here. This next poem is for everyone dead from COVID and for everyone who grieves. A breath. May her memory be for a blessing. We say the loss will feel less raw. We say you are loved and you matter. We say time heals. We say time heals while we are keening into the dark, tears drawing salt across our faces. We are bent low grieving, then bend lower still so the earth can receive our sorrow whole, gifting back to us her tender witness of our letting go, holding on, letting go, holding on for dear life, rising up and letting go. May remembering be a blessing in our day, a blessing, a breath. And there have been so many words this weekend celebrating land and understanding where we come from and who was here before us and all of this. And this is a poem that embraces that awareness, I think. So I heard singing. I was out wandering in the autumn woods on an old dirt road with no houses that followed a brook through a quiet forest intersected by mossy stone walls marking the ghost boundaries of farms that once were. A brook fell over a waterfall into a deep ravine where I stopped to watch the leaves shimmer in that golden hour slant of light that illuminates the world from within, a light that stuns all my worries to silence. A raven flew over, calling a greeting to another raven that answered from a distance, and then from the shimmer of light and the drum of water crossing stone, a song rose from the land. I kid you not, I heard singing like a prayer that came from the ground. Whose relations left a song in this land? Not mine, I reckon. Mine never walked here before. And not the wall builders whose labors cleared and divided, and not the song of sheep or cattle who grazed meadows here until the forest grew back to make the borders obsolete. How far has this song traveled through light and across time to reach the ears of a person stopping for no reason, listening for the stories raven tell and the waters falling? It feels in my bones like a mending for future generations is passing through. This song, a ceremony dancing deep in the woods since before stones were dug and laid for walls, an earth protection rooted in grandmother hopes. Today is the day a person with ears to hear bent closer, awed by the blessing still singing through the land. This next poem is called At the Beach. How it feels now when I dip a toe into the foam at the beach is like I can feel ocean's low moan of pain rising with the tide, an earth grown weary of the aching wound. I imagine their ongoing conversation about how to shake off the menace enthralling the world. These humans with opposable thumbs are clearly evolution's genius gone awry. When I dip a toe into the foam, instead of feeling invited in, it's like I should apologize even for existing. Like the salt and water in me is a waste of good life. Like the responsibility for how wrong things feel is truly mine. I am overcome with a weight of unbearable sorrow, like I am one with everything and everything is suffering. When I dip a toe in the foam, I remember every time I ran down the beach and into the waves feeling welcomed, celebrating being at home in that ion-rich boundary land between sea and shore, dancing in the roll and tumble where the crabs live in the midst of all that commotion. When I dip my toe in the foam, a song rises from the deeps of me and catches the wind. I'm sorry, please forgive me, beloved, because I cannot stop what people do, and already I too am broken by the accident of having opposable thumbs.
Thanks, Dina. That ends your time.
Okie dokie.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
And Robert's up, so let's give it to Robert while the crowd goes wild.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here. Thank you, Lis and Paul, for putting these together. These have been a lifesaver during the virus. They've been doing these online things for a couple of years now. Believe it or not, Paul, this book is 2 years old from Human Error Publishing. I'm going to open with Wheel Turns. The wheel turns, stars fade in and out of view. Life begins and ends every moment. The wren sings and the jackdaw croaks. Children laugh and the tribes of the world play capture the flag. At the center of the wheel is the stillness, largely unnoticed by the busy throng, untouched by the vicissitudes of time, inaccessible through commerce or coercion, unknowable by philosophy or dogma or reason, yet infinitely present in each fragile breath. Trade winds blow across the globe, empires rise and fall, still the center of the wheel remains unchanged, impervious to manipulation, undaunted and ineffable. The sea swells and recedes while the sun makes its rounds, and the moon drives us to madness with its beauty. All things bright and beautiful, merely reflections of that sacred stillness. Thank you. And I couldn't I couldn't help but, plug Lisa's. I had to read one of the three I have in here. Honoring Nature. This entire anthology is amazing, and I'm so grateful to have been a part of it. This is Conjunction. It was written for a place close by Perryville Dam. This is the sweet spot where time slows. The marsh explodes with sound. Red wings caw, full-throated joy, calling to make life. A wood drake observes from the channel, patiently awaiting his chance to impress. Slowly moving water, heading for cataracts just downriver. Patchwork of greens and browns, new growth sprouts from decay. The river flowing over the dam, background music for the bog. Bright red buds on trees, highlighted by overcast skies. Standing on the bones of my ancestors, I am here now. The rest of the ones are, thank you. The rest of the ones are from a book that will be coming out soon. It's 50 poems and 50 sketches. It's called Earth Songs. And the first one is called Unexpected Connections. You and I, my friend, we are inexorably intertwined. Whither thou goest, I have been, here or in a dream, sliding into the collective unconscious. So many little synchronicities, all my idiosyncrasies mirror yours distinctively. Albeit tacit, we are all connected, taking this ride for such a short time, either getting busy living or incrementally dying. Moments slip by in a trance, forgetting to dance, locked into routine, pulled by the slipstream of time, falling behind, falling in line. Nature whispers her secrets in systemically recurring patterns, healing refrains, soft echoes, rolling cadence, shouts in thunderous exclamations, fiery proclamations, howling winds, and earth torn asunder, hoping to wake us, to shake us, to make us connect with the larger life before we go under. Thank you. Everything belongs. I am a tree grown up twisted and gnarled from bending backwards towards the light, having spent too much time in shadow. I am a stream flowing hither and yon, picking up stuff, meandering through strange lands, sometimes singing, often murmuring, seeking an ocean. I am a cloud pursuing the heights, blown about and set off course, filled with moisture and vapors, stretched out and dissipated, at times reflecting the colors of the sun. I am the universe, born of stardust, a miracle of contradictions, energy and matter, moving and static, constantly changing and adapting, neither created nor destroyed, only being. 26 seconds. Thank you very much. This was a prompt by Kristen Lang, who read at some point this weekend. I don't know if it's yet, but whatever. This is about how the earth pulsates every 26 seconds. They know where it originates, but they don't know why. Earthbeat pulses, lost in wonder, feet soil dancing, wind as partner, soaring skyward, hawk as brother, rapid descent, catch the river, otter rising, making ripples, calling brook trout to the table, grateful offering, we are oneing, all within this 26 seconds. Thank you. Page 52. And if you're curious what this is about, if you Google page 52, it's the first thing that comes up. When we saw others solve their problems by a simple reliance upon the spirit of the universe, I have always felt compelled to read book after book, fiction, nonfiction, sacred texts, commentaries, treatises, poetry, myth, fables, always seeking for answers to the big questions. Doctrine, dogma, diatribes, religion, rites, ritualization, contemplation, over intellectualization, all complicate the basic situation. How many years now have I asked, why am I here now? Traded this for that, I dare now, tried to swallow the fear now. Could it really be this clear now? A simple reliance upon the spirit of the universe, breathing in, breathing out, letting go. Thank you. This one I wrote for my parents last October. I was sitting at their bench down the Cape on a cloudy day. Sitting at the ocean, feeling like an orphan, emptiness engulfing, swallowed in the morning. Sunlight anathematic, clouds bring welcome cover, gulls join in the keening, a symphonic minor number. Heaviness descending, tide is rising higher, desire to surrender, swallow all this water, lay there at the bottom, blissfully forgetting, returning to the mother, the ocean's never ending. And
Robert,
I'd like
you got
to
a minute
close.
left. You got a minute left, right?
Yep, perfect. I'm going to close with, I've been closing a lot with this. This is how Fox has showed up in my life over the years. It's called Fox Talks. She first showed up at twilight, a kit with her brother stealing glances among the stones outside her den. Our mutual fascination was magic. I returned every night for weeks, but foxes grow up fast. Years later, my dad passed away. I was alone in my truck at noontime, and Fox walked right down the middle of the abandoned street. She came right up to my door, and I asked her why she was out in the middle of the day. She winked at me and trotted off into the pine scrubs, leaving me a memory larger than life. Since then, she has taught me invisibility, how to walk through the forest without disturbing its inhabitants. And she has taught me how to stay silent when I would speak and disturb the perfection of the moment. Thank you so much. It's great to see all you guys.
Thanks, Robert. Next up, we have this guy called Paul Richmond. Let's see. There was a story earlier today about pissing, and also this. So this connects the pissing in the land, pissing in the front yard. He was born in a shack in the woods. As he grew up, trees near the shack turned into. Sorry, start it over. He was born in a shack in the woods. As he grew up, trees were cut down. The trail near the shack turned into a dirt road. As a kid, he would run outside to take a piss. He liked to piss in what became known as the front yard. He liked the big trees there, that on that side of the house. And while he would be pissing, he would look up at them and wonder what it would be like to climb them. As he grew older, the dirt road became a gravel. Cars would pass by now and then, and he had climbed the trees. He felt at home pissing by those big trees. They were still there. As time went on, the road became paved. More trees had been cut down. Cars passed more often. More houses could be seen. There were always lawns now, and his place stood out. Things grew wild. He didn't have a lawn, and he became known as the crazy old guy. He was in his 90s when he was arrested for pissing in his front yard. How uncivilized. When they arrested him, he stunk up the back of the police car, his piss-stained pants. He was asked why wasn't he taking care of himself, and he said he couldn't, and there was no one who could help him. The old man asked why they couldn't let him just be there where he was, let him die in the front yard trying to take a piss. The old man asked, is there a law against pissing in the front yard? As the judge called a recess so the court secretary could search for the law, someone known as a social worker was looking for services that could help clean up the place, getting food delivered, take care of them. The judge knew the system wasn't working. There were long lines trying to place people, as it's called in the trade. The judge knew he had a case coming up in a little while, a group of teenagers who lived near the old man in the neighborhood and who had just gotten arrested for being teenagers. He decided he would sentence the boys to planting large bushes in the old man's front yard so he could continue to piss with the big trees. The agency was found who said they would go out and help. The teenagers got to know the old guy, found he was pretty funny. They got jobs bringing in his wood. He continued to piss in the front yard, laughing out loud as he watched the teens climb the trees. This one was in the book, Writing the Land Northeast. And since Nature Culture has put out 2 great books, many more to come. And this one being on land, I'm on land trust land, by the way. We have a lease, 99-year lease. We just own the house we're on. We don't own the land. Anybody in the land trust can't sell the land they're on. And these poems are in that section about that land trust called the Valley Community Land Trust. There are memories of dreams, of families, of planting an orchard, having one's own artist studio where the dog is buried, where the barn was raised, where Aunt Judy fell and broke her leg, the outdoor dinner parties when we all danced in the field under the moonlight, planning, feeding the earth, making a home for bees, for future stewards to enjoy, constantly reminding ourselves that our work and living on the land doesn't mean we own it. Instead, deepening our connections to the earth where we will go rest, be reborn as flowers for the next stewards. This one comes out of people were talking about, what to say, and the person who's talking about going silent for 17 years. So I'd like to say, what can I say? What can I say and what can you hear? What do you want to hear? What do I want to tell you? What do I say to strangers? What do I announce to everyone? What is said to a chosen few? What is known as a secret? What is never said? What will be said later? What could be said? What was said before? What others hoped you would say? What you wished you had said? What you wished you had never said? What you thought you said, what you had said to the wrong person, what was said that you didn't want to hear. What can I say? Don't say it on Tuesdays. That's all I have to say to you. Don't say it on Tuesdays. I hope that was helpful. And let's see here. I think I read this one because it came up, even though I read it earlier, because people have been talking about hope. It's in the first book of Honoring Nature, just to keep the plugs going. You know what I'm saying? The cash coming in, go push that button, buy the book. That isn't a private sale. I'm just announcing. Okay, this is called Clouds, Hope, and Dreams. When you open your eyes, what do you see? Are you in a war zone? Are you in the woods? Are you in a hospital ward? Are you seeing death and destruction? Are you seeing beauty? Yoko Ono said, living in Japan after the bombings, she only wanted to look up into the sky, to watch the clouds, see how they changed. It gave her hope that things do change. You can dream. You see dragons, faces, wild horses, whole stories unfold, shown the unfamiliar, the abstract, formations that don't fit in neatly defined boxes, the beauty that is shown and washed away. There is no holding on, only taking in, appreciating, having to let go, the continual changes, the darkness, then the dawn, the clouds passing overhead. Here comes the story. Here comes the storm. Here comes relief from the sun. Look at the beauty. To be overwhelmed, not to be taken for granted, will never be the same. It is all there for us to see. Have you looked up? Do you see? Do you feel the hope? Do you dream? Here comes the clouds. Here comes the clouds. And since I got 1 minute left, I'll do a classic poet thing and read a 7-minute poem. No, this is called A Well-Dressed Man and a Dog. A well-dressed man and a dog walk into the bar. I'll start this over. A well-dressed man walks into a bar with a dog. The bartender says, he looks really mean. He looks like he wouldn't listen to anyone, and he looks like he's ready to kill for no reason. And I don't want him pissing and shitting in the corner. And can you get him to stop humping the bar stool? And the dog says, you can dress him up, but he is who he is. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Paul. And everybody should know that Paul is the publisher of the Authors and Artists Anthology and the Writing the Land Northeast Anthology. So thanks so much, Paul. And our last speaker is Rescue Poetix.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. It's such an honor to be here among so many different voices and so much energy and so much joy through the written and spoken word. Taste is the memory of the body, an instant recognition of a long ago happening, experiences that shape perspective, heartstrings tugged by nostalgia, a scent, a flavor, a texture, swirling long forgotten things our bodies remember. They recognize seasons through tastes of food, connecting instantly, awaking sensations. Arroz con dulce. I don't know how to make it, but the moment that it hits my tongue, I remember the boxes of raisins, sticks of canela, tall pots stirred and stirred and stirred. Pernil, marinated in oil, vinegar, garlic, and herbs. The palate never forgets. Texture of buttery goodness falling apart in my mouth. Coquito, spiked with rums so that my sense of smell captures the memories of the bottles that line the counter, liquid soldiers performing, and those reinforcements for long nights and laughter during the holidays. Each season tastes different, unique in muscle memory, triggering goosebumps, smiles, people. Anticipation is palpable each time. When the winds change, carrying the tail ends of now away, sweeping in the next inhaling of bodily feasts. I can already taste spring. Thank you. This next one talks about being Puerto Rican in and not really understanding what that culture is until you push yourself to learn about it, which is something that happened in my youth. Inheritance is an expectation of blood that has long run thin, losing its strength through generation and generation of diluted rebellions, until you don't even ask why the pernil is cut before you put it in the mojo, why the pasteles are made the day after Thanksgiving in a marathon of papel and twine, mounds of masa y achote, why the olives are green and fingertips blackened by the labor of love that lost its meaning long ago. Broken accents of tios y tias into the flat New Jersey Puerto Rican nasal correction from children who are taught that brown skin is a second-class punishment, but not taught to love that skin and the pain, sacrifice, laughter, and rhythms that come with it. Inheritance of blood, belief, change, trauma. Passed down from mother and father, the 5 letters meaning lotus flower, with the strength of Egyptian queens, treated as a delicate lily, a rose whose petals fall in the heat, underestimated and invisible in the weeds of males. The melanin that was once my inheritance, thinned by the blood of savages in the guise of men. Yet there was always hope. There is always hope. A fierce determination to grow beyond the boundaries and limitations of the 5 letters expects to define or wipe away a heritage of blood, seen through the ideals of others, with the cadence of colonialism. Along with the accent that should have rightfully been mine, the whole pernil marinated and cooked slow and long, leaving that lingering hope of what's to come. It's taken 1 generation forward to remind 2 generations back that what's in a made-up name is but a sound, passed on through the divinity of ancestors, clamoring to be remembered, in the pale skin stretched over the conga, through the gyro's hollow screeches, traditions of masa y achote deep into the night, wrapped in hojas de plátano, tied with butcher's twine, strong enough to keep the secrets in while the color bleeds out. Thank you. This next piece that I'm going to share with you all is called Bedouin. It talks about being a nomad in body as well as in spirit, which is something that through my youth and even now is just one of those things that if I could be the wind in my next life so I could be everywhere, I would be the wind. Born with a nomad spirit, a wanderlust that transcends ability to set roots in the everyday, always in search of the world within, hidden dimensions of alternate universes. From one lily pad to the next, the grass is only greener at its best. The now world, the one that doesn't flex and bend to mirror images of what could be, grounded or rather cemented in drudgery, begging questions that begin with, is this all there is? There must be more than this. Is this all there is? I wasn't born to shadow until my final breath. Is this all it is? My spirit wanders on, looking beyond the here, the now, the trauma embedded in my very flesh, flowing through veins of experiences and histories not of my making, birthed into me through traditions that long ago were accepted as normal. Beyond that, past the harvest of everyday seeds embedded in folds and flesh comes a new moon, the moon of the wanderer, one that changes everything and challenges even me, bathing earth in traces of new dimensions. Hunter's supermoon, shift to fill feasts of nomadic motion, bursting seeds marred by what was accepted as normal, deflated roots of generational trauma, heart racing, tingling in the possibilities and at all of the possibilities that are alight by the fire that is the horizon, coaxing this wanderer through angles, exposed between colors that boggle the mind, with grace that eases the body, raw in its very tone. Feast to every sense, birthed in every movement, wild heart entranced, captured by its own beat, encircled by sweet new seeds, primitive in their need for growth, dropping along the way of the wanderer's path, where the true adventure begins. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rescue Poetix, for jumping in and rescuing us at the very end.